Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth.
And I'm Zach.
And we are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right.
I was on the YouTube and I found a comment that we didn't respond to that I recently responded to.
What was the comment?
That's right.
That's right.
By our fan who we did the Shinobi episode for.
Shinobi?
Shinobi?
Shinobi. I heard you say Shinobi.
Shinobi. Yeah, it's like the guy from Thundercats.
Oh, Snarf!
Snarf. Yeah, that's it. From Thundercats. Shinobi. Sorry, I channel my inner Snarf.
Your inner Snarf.
When I'm talking about older games.
We all have an inner Snarf. I was thinking of
Snarf?
Thundercats specifically.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't remember why.
I was thinking about Biker Mice from Mars recently.
That's a better thing to think about.
Anytime you can add mice and bikers together.
Everyone loves some Biker Mice from Mars.
Yeah, I think so too.
Pretty sure you had me play one of the Biker Mice from Mars games as a Retro Rewind.
Yeah, I've been trying to track down the episodes of it, and it's been tough.
Tough?
Yeah. Toof.
Toof.
Mostly because I'm very particular about what I download.
I feel like that's not actually true, because sometimes you'll download an entire show, and I don't know if you'll ever actually watch it.
No, I meant particular about the file format, not necessarily the actual show.
Oh, I got you. Okay, yes, because I was going to say sometimes you download some weird stuff.
I know. What is there anything in particular that you think is the weirdest that I've downloaded?
You downloaded all of Captain Planet. Not necessarily weird, but just interesting. You downloaded the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon, which you said you don't like.
Oh, yeah, because I watched the first episode and it was a little weird.
I like that you downloaded the entire thing, and then you said, this is a little weird.
Yeah, the first episode just starts with them like in the middle, and it feels like it's a weird show. I'm
pretty sure there was a period of time where the only thing on here was like Taxi and Reboot.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Also, the only Law and Order you have on here is Trial by Jury.
Yeah, which it's because you can stream the other ones on services that I have, but you can't stream Trial by Jury on Hulu. So that I get real mad when I need to watch the one crossover episode, so I download the entire series. I haven't watched the rest of it. I've only watched the one crossover. I didn't even watch the episodes I'm pretty sure I just watched a random middle episode.
Was the run crossover with SVU where they do a crossover where like the first chunk of an episode, like the whole episode is like it gets to the point where they're about to like go to court, and then the rest of it was done on Trial by Jury?
Yeah. The episode is in fact where there is a crime and arrest of the person in SVU, and then the trial of him in Trial by Jury, and the villain of this 2-part episode is somebody you want to watch both episodes because it's Alfred Molina.
I like when they have guest stars that are really big and they don't want to make them out to be bad people. So like there are bad people because they're criminals, right? But they don't want to make them to be really bad people. Robin Williams was in an episode. And he wasn't the rapist. He was just like semi-connected to the crime. He was a guy who would call in impersonate.
That's right, because he convinced people to commit crimes.
Yes,
he was a con man. Oh, that was a really good episode.
And he escapes in the end. He just like runs away.
They should have done before they stopped. Maybe this should stay for the Law and Order episode, but they should have had the Martin Short character. Who was the psychic?
Oh yeah.
They should have had him team up with Robin Williams.
That would be good. And then they have to take down Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina would have joined. It would have been like the Sinister Six of like Law and Order SVU.
Yeah, they bring in the serial killer doctor from like the later seasons, and the guy with the scar down his face that held Benson hostage.
Oh, and the guy who sniffs the boys' caps.
Yes.
Oh man.
He's their version of the Shocker. He's just kind of there.
And I'm pretty sure you could probably actually find an episode where Michael Keaton's the villain, and it just,
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
you could probably find the Sinister Six and starring in Law & Order episodes.
100%.
Anyway, this was a deviation that will probably get cut.
This is deviation best suited for next episode, which we already have scripted.
Yes.
But before we get into this week's episode that has nothing to do with Law & Order, we should talk about what we've recently been playing.
Sure.
I'll go first. I've been playing Leave It Alone, which came out in October 2025 by Eternity, and I beat it. So cue the Zach Beats a Game song.
Congratulations.
Thanks. It wasn't that difficult. It took about 2 hours to play. It's a casual cleaning sim where you clean up your messy yard of all of the leaves. The plot of the game is that you are recovering from a coma and you came back home and there's a lot of leaves because you were in a coma for a long time. It just starts out with a little description that just says, you've been in a coma. There's leaves to clean. And you just clean your yard. You pick up leaves at first one at a time, and then you can upgrade to a couple at a time and faster at picking them up. And then you can upgrade to getting a rake, and then you can get a leaf blower. It's fun. You pick up leaves, you put them in bags, and you put them in garbage cans, and then you make money doing that somehow. It's just a casual little fun game. Took me, again, about 2 hours to play. Definitely a game you can just chill and relax to. I mean, the music in the game is pretty nice, but I could see me putting on like a podcast and just playing the game to like just chill. It's a relaxing game. Didn't find it that difficult. Like, I didn't have to like hunt down any leaves, basically. Like, couldn't find that like one last leaf. But yeah, it's just like an addicting casual game of just cleaning up. But very similar to like Power Wash Simulator or Crime Scene Cleaner or
Crime Scene Cleaner without all the crime.
Yeah, without the crime or the blood. It's just leaves. That's Leave It Alone, available on Steam. It came out in October 2025.
Yeah, it looks cool. I put it on my wish list, so maybe I will pick it up and enjoy some leafing alone. I do like getting into those like cleaning type games like Crime Scene Cleaner. They're very cool.
Yeah.
Very like, you get into the machine rhythm where you go into like a state of zen, positive or negative, driven by the machines. But recently I've been playing the Iron Nest, which was released in August of 2026, which is this month, but may not be the month you listen to this episode in. It was developed and published by Nick Newat and Dominic Latos, and I apologize to both of you if I destroyed your last names. It is a game where you play in a mobile artillery gun, and it is not very fast in being mobile. It's mobile in the sense that it occasionally moves on the map when you are sleeping so it can get repositioned, but it is a massive artillery weapon, and it is such a cool experience because you have to do everything. You have to participate in a combat, like a war, without ever seeing anybody else. You have written instructions that come in from high command. You are given positions of spotters, and you are given positions of where the enemy may be, and you're given your own position so you can kind of figure out where you are on the map. And there's this map, and the whole map's gridified, and it has like A through I think Z in regards to like letters, and then numbers going vertical, and then every grid has multiple subgrids, so you can have like A167 or like A199, and that's like a subgrid, and so that's what you're trying to target. And so you have a bearing, which is the direction that your gun is facing, and you have a distance, and in order to get the distance you need to deliver the right amount of powder charges and the right amount of height on your gun. So you need to get the height of gun, powder charges, type of shell, even perhaps the type of target you're trying to hit, and you have to calculate that to figure out the degree that your gun is up. You have a map and you're given information. Sometimes you have to do this quickly because sometimes they're trying to do the same to you, so you have to calculate where they are before they calculate where you are, and you figure out on a map, you say, okay, this is where I think they are. This is the information I have. I'm going to plot in the distance. I'm going to load the shell, so maybe a high explosive shell. I'm going to put some powder charges behind it, and then I'm going to raise the gun. I'm going to turn the gun, the bearing to be the correct position. I'm going to confirm all the numbers are correct. Then I'm going to fire. And everything is so tangible. Everything's very like clunky and like feels like it's like you're like pretty much there, like pulling it. And then you watch on your map, there's a little like half moon thing on an arm that goes out on the direction that you launched it on, and you can watch your little explosives go and then land somewhere, and then you get photographs of where it happened, so you know if you struck something. Sometimes you have to be careful because there may be civilians near your target, so you don't want to kill the civilians and all that. And it's just a really cool, immersive game. You can blast some like very, I would say, Eastern European inspired music throughout the time as you're playing, and it's a really cool kind of wild game. I at one point in time was playing it. I have a standing desk, so I was standing while trying to plot my my maps, and it was very, very immersive in regards to how the game plays. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun, and that's Iron Nest, and it's on Steam right now. It's $14.99, and but it's MSRP at $19.99. It's worth it for sure.
Great, that sounds good. Well, getting into today's episode, we're going to be actually doing a listener suggestion. So friend of the show, listener of the show, Marcus reached out to us and suggested we talk about Phantasy Star, which is a game series that we've probably mentioned before, but we've never done an entire episode on. So Marcus, this episode's for you. We're going to talk about the first Phantasy Star, and then if we did a good job, we'll talk about the rest. But before we get into the history of Phantasy Star, I wanted to talk about my memories of Phantasy Star and if Seth had any. So I learned about Phantasy Star when I was pretty young, around the time I think I first started like really using the internet, and I would do this thing where I'd look up like just stuff related to Sonic, and I learned about Phantasy Star through that because there was a Phantasy Star game that was coming out for the Dreamcast at the time in the 2000s, and I remember seeing ads for it and then also seeing pictures of it online sometime after it came out. So when I collected the Sonic comics, though, I also remember seeing ads for the Dreamcast and specifically for Phantasy Star Online, which I thought was kind of a cool idea. This online role-playing game, what a unique concept. But I don't think I ever actually played it. I don't remember ever playing Phantasy Star. We didn't know anyone who had a Dreamcast. I got a Dreamcast, but it was kind of late, and I never had any of the Phantasy Star games for it. And despite growing up with a Sega Genesis, we never had the Phantasy Star games for that. I don't know if it's because we didn't really actively buy games. We mostly rented games, and also the games that we did own, we inherited from friends. If they didn't have Phantasy Star, we didn't have Phantasy Star. But that's how we ended up with things like Shining Force and stuff. But yeah, Seth, do you have any memories of Phantasy Star?
I actually do. I had a friend that I was friends with and you were not friends with, who I hung out with. Wait, you just weren't.
I know, I hung out like the way you worded that.
Through high school and into college, we hung out pretty regularly, and he liked Phantasy Star. He liked all the Phantasy Stars, and would occasionally play it. So it was a lot more of like he would be wrapping up and playing Phantasy Star Online, and then we would be showing up, and then we would be playing like multiplayer games. So I would usually just see like the Phantasy Star like parts of it. I wouldn't go over to his house and watch him play the game. We would be playing like multiplayer games. So, but there would be times where he would just be like finishing up because he liked it a lot. So that was my kind of exposure to it, was the times that were spent at his house and seeing that and knowing that he did really like it. So I know that there is a strong fan base behind Phantasy Star Online for sure.
To get into the history of Phantasy Star, Phantasy Star's history and development coincided largely with the RPG boom of the mid-1980s. While it took a while for RPG games to ever get big in the United States, and arguably they never really did get big in the United States. I mean, they're definitely more popular than they were in the 90s and the 80s, but I don't think RPG games ever got to the status that they were in places like Japan. But in Japan, there were games like Final Fantasy and Dragon's Quest and Ys that were gaining traction and becoming really popular. Also, what was popular in Japan were some of the import American titles like Wizardry and Ultima, and these games would inspire the JRPG genre as a whole. Phantasy Star was seen as Sega's response to this RPG bubble, so to speak. They saw that these type of games made money, And if there's one thing Sega likes doing, it's making money. If there's one thing they're bad at doing, was keeping that money. And they also wanted to keep it an internal project because that meant less money trying to get involved with a third-party developer. So Sega would tap two individuals to lead the project, programmer Yuji Naka and designer Kotaro Hayashida. They would take point on the project and would become the heads of the team. Both previously had experience working on successful games with Sega, so Sega had some faith in them. They worked on Alex Kidd and Outrun, respectively. Naka and Hayashida put together a team of their own of 10 people to develop the game, many of them being people they were familiar with from their previous releases. One person of note was a newcomer to the team, Naota Oshima, who would later be the character designer for Dr. Robotnik and Sonic the Hedgehog. The team worked together in one room at Sega, and this gave them ease of communication, being able to see each other's work, and definitely made the process of developing this game more streamlined. Sega also let the team be pretty much free in terms of their development. Again, Sega had a lot of faith in them, so they didn't necessarily put down any hard restrictions or mandates that needed to be done. They basically said, hey, just get this game done in a reasonable time and have fun.
To have the game stand out, the team decided to pull inspiration from different places that weren't necessarily where other fantasy RPGs were pulling from. While a lot of RPGs at the time were derivatives of Lord of the Rings, Dungeons & Dragons, or Warhammer, the Phantasy Star team decided to source inspiration from science fiction, like Star Wars, and mix it with elements of medieval fantasy. Debatable if Star Wars is actually science fiction. But the team would focus on animation and graphics, as they really wanted the game to stand out from the rest of the offerings that were out there. To do this, they animated the different enemy monsters, created dynamic event sequences, and made oceans and walkways animated on the world map. To deal with the restrictions of the Master System hardware, some characters would be drawn into the background with only parts of them being animated to give the illusion that larger characters were full sprites. Inspired by dungeon crawlers, the team also created 3D dungeon segments. These were considered crucial in the design process because the Famicom couldn't handle 3D spaces in the way they wanted to portray, which would make their game stand out against Nintendo. This type of thinking is often how Sega worked in those early days, looking for ways to prove themselves as having superior hardware despite having such a small market share. They were very much in that the show me face or like,
I think I read somewhere that they had like 1/12 of the market share of hardware at the time, so they definitely were like,
which leads to like all their advertisings of like blast processing and all of that, and their constant like Sega versus Nintendo duel until Nintendo won. And that's coming from somebody who was a Sega boy. Nintendo won because one of them's still making hardware today. To get around some issues with the size on the cartridge and those 3D spaces, Yuji Naka created true 3D wireframes which could have art superimposed on it. This allowed for the 3D environments to take up less space than creating faux 3D 2D backgrounds that were animated. It also meant that the game performed well, almost too well in fact, with the team needing to slow down the 3D segments due to how fast they scrolled by.
For the character design, they decided that they wanted to go for a female protagonist that they named Alice, as a contrast to the predominantly male-centered RPGs of their competitors.
Was Metroid
not an RPG?
No, but was it released around this time?
86.
Oh, convenient.
Convenient, yeah.
That they decided to have a female protagonist in a sci-fi game. I wonder who else had a female protagonist in a sci-fi game.
Some other characters that were created for the game were Noah and Odin, who were based on the characters of Raistlin and Karaman from the Dragonlance books. Again, pulling from those American role-playing and fantasy settings. When it came time, though, for the game to actually come out on the Sega Master System, the team needed to use larger chips due to the size of the ROM data. The game was about 500K in size, even after the team made some considerable cuts, such as removing some animations and reducing the number of planets in the game from 4 to 3. Phantasy Star, though, would release. It was released in Japan on December 20th, 1987 for the Sega Mark III, aka the Master System, and then it was localized to Western audiences in November of 1988. Sega also released a limited release port to the Mega Drive in 1994, which was the exact same game as the Master System version, but with FM sound support. The thing I love about that was that people kept saying to Sega, you have to release the original Phantasy Star on the Mega Drive. It would be amazing if you ported it to the Mega Drive. And Sega said, Are you telling us that you'll buy the same game if we just put it out for a different system? So they did. But it's literally the same game. Again, the Sega Genesis was backwards compatible with the Master System, so it wasn't that hard to make basically the same game work for a different system. In terms of its storyline, Phantasy Star is set in the star system of Algol, which features 3 distinct planets. The desert planet of Motavia, the ice planet of Deseris, and the green planet of Palma. Marcus, if I pronounced any of these things wrong, I want to see a correction email from you. In the game, there is a king named King Lassic, who is the ruler of the star system. At first, he's a benevolent king, though over the years he has become a sociopathic tyrant, and rebellions have begun emerging throughout the star system. You play as Aelis, the sister of a rebel named Nero. Nero gets killed by Lassic's troops, and Aelis plans to take revenge for her brother's death, and is joined by a wizard named Noah and a warrior named Odin. They also are joined by a cat-like creature named Meow, and together they have to fight Lassic and save the galaxy. Phantasy Star is an RPG game, played a lot like other RPG games from Japan. You have a top-down perspective where you encounter different enemies. The game switches from that top-down perspective to a first-person perspective, and then the gameplay changes to a turn-based attack style. You obviously have different weapons that you can get, different magic abilities. You have your party, so your party takes turns during the fight, and it plays out pretty much as you'd expect from the standard RPG style. Where I think Phantasy Star stands out, though, is the aesthetic and also those 3D segments we mentioned earlier, the dungeon crawling segments, which really make the game feel like its own world, very separate from the type of games that you'd be playing on, for example, the Famicom. Now, Seth, how did the game do?
Well, Zach, I crunched the numbers, and the exact sales were hard to track down, but it's safe to say the game did well as it spawned an entire franchise. In terms of reviews, the game did great. Console XS gave it a 95%, Sega Power gave it a 5 out of 5, Sega Pro gave it a 96%. I'm just going to stop for just 1 second. Sega Power and Sega Pro giving a Sega game.
They weren't run by Sega, though, so they were
okay.
Independent, I'm pretty sure.
Are you 100% sure?
Sega Pro was published by Paragon. It was not owned by Sega. And Sega Power was owned by Future PLC, which was a British publishing company. Also not owned by Sega.
Oh, nice. So they... I'm sure they were biased for Sega games, but...
Probably, yes.
But Sega Power gave it a 5 out of 5, and Sega Pro gave it a 96%. And ZZAP, which is ZZAP, exclamation point, gave it a 92%. EGM would also award the game with the best graphics in 1988. Retroactively, the game has been regarded as a classic, being called ahead of its time by some sources. In 1996, Next Generation would also rank the game as 72 on the top 100 games of all time, and EGM would put it at number 26 in their top 200 listings in 2006. We should do a magazine episode again. The game spawned, as mentioned, a massive franchise. The first 2 sequels, Phantasy Star 2 and Phantasy Star 3, would be released on the Sega Genesis in 1989 and 1990, and a 4th game, Phantasy Star 4, would come out in 1993. They did go with the very unique naming nomenclature for their games, making sure that you knew that they were sequels, but also they needed to make sure that you knew they were Phantasy Star. It's funny, we make fun of games that call themselves Game Plus Number, but we also make fun of games who just have weird ass different names every time.
Yeah.
So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't when you come on a review for Classic Gaming Brothers.
In the year 2000, Phantasy Star Online was released for the Dreamcast, which also spawned its own kind of sub-franchise of Phantasy Star games. Phantasy Star Online, as the name implies, is an RPG game that is online. I don't necessarily call it an MMO. I don't really think it's considered an MMO, but it does allow you to play cooperatively with other players on the internet. So there was a real-time online hub where players could gather and chat, so it did have some MMO style to it. Another series, Phantasy Star Universe, would be released for Microsoft Windows, PS2, Xbox 360 in 2006. This would also spawn its own line of games and was also an online game. There are also various handheld titles like Phantasy Star Guidance, Dragon and Phantasy Star Adventure, both for the Sega Game Gear, and arguably what I think was one of the most interesting titles that came out of the Phantasy Star series was Phantasy Star 2 Text Adventures, which were released between 1990 and 1991 for the Sega Mega Drive. These would be released on the Sega Game Toshaken service in Japan, kind of like Sega Channel, but in Japan. And these different releases are all visual novels that act as prequels to Phantasy Star 2. You can actually download English translations of these. They are available to be downloaded from the internet if you know where to look. And they're just an interesting little time capsule of this type of era where you could play a visual novel prequel to a Sega Genesis game on your Sega Genesis. But really, that would do it, at least for the original Phantasy Star game. So we will definitely at some point cover some of the other Phantasy Star games, because I think the Sega Genesis games have their own kind of style to them that make them stand out. And of course, we could do a whole episode on just Phantasy Star Online, as that is a massive franchise in its own right. But I think this is a good primer, a good taster, so to speak, a little sampler of the Phantasy Star game, the original one at least. And Marcus, I hope we did this game justice. And again, if not, sorry. But getting into our retro rewinds, Seth had me play the Chaos Engine 2, and he told me to play it for the Mega Drive. There's one major problem. It didn't come out for the Mega Drive. It was going to come out for the Mega Drive, but it never got ported. So this was at some point supposed to be on the Mega Drive, and they never released it. It did come out on the Amiga, so played the Amiga version. The game is similar to the first Chaos Engine, but the major difference is that you now have two players. One player is controlled by you, and the other player is controlled by your friend. Or if you're like me, and you have no friends, you get a computer to control that player. And it's all right. Again, it plays very similarly to the original Chaos Engine, with the major difference being that you now have two players to focus on. I like Chaos Engine's aesthetic. I think Chaos Engine, for me, is kind of a game that feels nostalgic, despite the fact that I never played it when I was little because we couldn't get it to run. But it's almost like the game that never was for me. Like, I know for a fact it would have been nostalgic if we could play it, but we never got to play it. So it's kind of this, almost this like, what if, Marvel what if time capsule, so to speak. Chaos Engine 2, it's all right. It'd be nice if the Amiga version did actually get ported to the Mega Drive. Alas, it didn't. Overall, though, I think it holds up. If you can get Amiga games running in any way, or if you have an Amiga, definitely check it out. Next week, Seth, you can play Dick Tracy for the Sega Genesis. I hope I've never given you that one before.
Oh, I don't think you have, especially if you haven't listened to all of our episodes. Zach had me play RoboTrek, which was also called Slapstick in Japan, which just feels like a very different name.
It does.
It's a JRPG that was released in Japan and the USA in 1994. First in Japan, then in the USA. Developed by Quintet, who are the same folks behind ActRaiser, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma. So this game's going to be good. It was also published by Enix before they got squared. And in the game, you play as a boy who is abandoned by his father and left to invent things with a woman who appears to be the father's assistant. Essentially, you wake up and it's moving day in this house, and you're woken up and they're like, your father needs to talk to you. And you're like, okay. And the father's like, go talk to the mayor. So then you leave your house. You go up to this giant mansion. You go talk to this grouchy guy behind the desk who's like, I'm the mayor. And he has a scientist with him whose name is Dr. Eint. And Dr. Eint is like, I don't want to talk to you. You're not smart enough for me, kid. And you were told to immediately return to your house after you do this. So then I walked back after that useless interaction. And my dear character's dad is there, and he's like, read this book about making robots. And you're like, okay. And then you read the book, and he's like, all right, I'm going to the house in the suburbs. You can visit me, and this lady is your assistant. Goodbye. And he summons his cat, and he leaves. And you're left in this house in the middle of the city with this lady who's possibly his assistant or his lover, and you are still a child who needs to build robots. And then the assistant lady brings you to a basement in your house where there are two little gnomes that live in there, and they build robots for you. It's interesting for sure. You can build up to 3 robots eventually. That's what the full party is, and you can customize pretty much everything: power, strength, speed, energy on the robot, including their like color scheme. And you have to go out and fight people with your robots, kind of like Pokemon. So it's like if Pokemon, if you instead just birthed custom Pokemon and change their colors. That's kind of like what this game's about. It involves you going out and fighting a group called the Hackers, which I assume can only be led by Angelina Jolie, and they're uprising against the peaceful order of the land. It's a classic JRPG with the twist of building robots instead of collecting Pokemon or collecting random strangers spread throughout various different towns. It's pretty solid and holds up, especially if you like JRPGs. If you do, I would recommend checking it out. If you've played through all your JRPGs and you haven't played Robo Trek, I would recommend. It's gonna give you those fun vibes. And the robot building, albeit being strange with the gnomes that live in the house, it's fine. It works. You could build your little robots, and it's a cool little aspect. Zach, next week you could play Art Alive for the Sega Genesis.
Great. I will. Well, thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. If you have any thoughts or memories on Phantasy Star, let us know. You can do so by emailing us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. We're available wherever podcasts can be found via Podbean, iTunes, or iHeartRadio. We're available on social media. Look us up, Classic Gaming Brothers, CG Brothers Pod. We're available on Patreon. Be sure to support us if you can. We're also available on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And of course, we're available on our website, www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Seth, am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
Right.